Okay, and quick check, can everybody see my screen? Awesome, all right. All good. So, okay, thank you everyone for joining us this afternoon. This is going to be a quick session on some of the upcoming changes about the Microsoft program. A lot of you have come to know TechSoup about our Microsoft program, essentially accessing either cloud subscriptions or discounted or donated desktop licenses. You've come to know us about that. That being said, these changes may affect that catalog will affect that catalog significantly. And that being said, we just wanted to give you a heads up, as it may also affect any plans that you all have at the moment, and also to make sure that you have a clear understanding of the things ahead. All right. So just quickly going through here. So you already know about TechSoup. We are a nonprofit, international nonprofit organization. We mainly support charities and NGOs and nonprofits, just you all across the globe. And we do that by supporting supporting such organizations to access discounts, donations for technology and other resources from companies like Microsoft and Google and so on. So again, this is about the Microsoft changes. So let's just get right onto it, right? I don't want to take up too much of your time. What's important here is you get a gist of these changes as soon as possible and get an understanding of how this will affect you moving forward, right? So if you may have seen some communications from our end before, which basically said that there are going to be significant changes to our donated desktop license catalog for Microsoft by April 4, 2022. We've sent this over email, but if you haven't yet, we'll make sure to send you additional resources after this webinar. And I'll make sure that you get a full understanding of what these changes imply in this session itself. So in short, this is what we're expecting. Significant changes to our desktop license catalog by April 4, 2022, but specifically to Microsoft, right? So in order for us to strategically unpack all of these changes, let's try to answer 3 key questions about these. First and foremost, what exactly are these changes? Second, considering these upcoming changes, how will this affect my nonprofit, right? And last but not the least, why is it important to know about these changes? You know, maybe this doesn't affect you at all, but nonetheless, we want you to be aware as well, all right? So what exactly are these changes? Simply speaking, in line with Microsoft's changing strategies towards cloud first, the donated on-premise or desktop licenses available through TechSoup will no longer be available by April 4, 2022. All right, so just repeating that again, as Microsoft veers towards a more cloud-first strategy, the desktop licenses available through TechSoup for low admin fees will no longer be available by April 4th of next year. Now, if that doesn't really make sense, don't worry. I understand because there's a lot of terminology here that you might not be familiar with. So let's try to unpack that further, right? So what does that exactly mean? First and foremost, the effects. I want to highlight that it is not retroactive, okay? The changes take effect April 4th, 2022. So there's a bit of time between now and then, right? And what I would like to assure you as well is that as these changes take effect by April, it will not affect any previous licenses, subscriptions, or otherwise that you've already accessed through TechSoup. If you've accessed free subscriptions from us before, that won't be affected. If you've accessed donated licenses of Office, Windows from us before, that won't be affected as well. It will not affect its validity, nor will it affect any ongoing features or price points that you've secured before. That being said, if you've already accessed licenses from us before, those are not affected. The changes are not retroactive, right? Second, another key thing we want to highlight here is that the changes are particular to a specific program. Particularly, it's about the donated desktop licenses for Microsoft. Now, I understand that may not ring a bell immediately. It's still confusing, right? I'll explain that further. But setting that aside, what I want to highlight here is that it is particular to that program. Other programs you're enjoying now with TechSoup, a good example is Google, Adobe, Zoom, and so on. Those are not affected. This is particularly about just one subset of a program that Microsoft offers through TechSoup. All right. So for you to get a better understanding of what that is, let's first revisit the three kinds of programs Microsoft is offering through TechSoup. So there are actually three different streams of licenses or three different kinds of licenses that you can access from us. Let's start off with the easiest one first, which is the nonprofit cloud subscriptions. It's quite easy. These are your cloud subscriptions, Office 365, Microsoft 365, and you access this either for free, entirely for free, or at discounted monthly per user rates, right? And these are the things that you consult with us with, and essentially these are cloud subscriptions. So I want to highlight this now because these are not affected at all. Even if your cloud subscription includes an on-premise or desktop feature, a good example of that is Microsoft 365 Business Premium, which includes both Office and Windows for desktop. Those are not included. Those are not affected by the changes, mainly because they are part of a cloud subscription. And again, the changes are isolated exclusively for the donated on-premise desktop licenses, all right? Now, here, let's dive into the part which may be a bit confusing. The changes, again, I would like to highlight is particularly to this section here, which is the donated desktop licenses. If you're not familiar with the term, it's donated, it's referred to as donated, not because they're free, but essentially because they're donated by Microsoft to TechSoup. These are licenses you access for a minimal admin fee and are limited to about 50 licenses per user, 50 licenses per organization every 2 years. A common example is Windows Get Genuine, which is about for $15 per license. That is a common example of that. And for most of you who have been with us with TechSoup for a long time now, this is pretty much one of the key things that you join TechSoup for, or which is what you've come to know us about, right? What you've come to know TechSoup of. So those are what's going to be affected. The desktop products that are for a minimal admin fee, a one-time minimal admin fee, and are limited to about 50 licenses per organization every 2 years. All right. So the coverage of the donated desktop licenses from Microsoft is essentially the standard versions of your desktop products, such as Windows, Office Standard, Windows Server Standard, and so on. Essentially, those are that. Now, alternative to this program, TechSoup is also able to offer commercial licenses, but at an open discount rate or nonprofit discount rate. So this is what we're referred to as this discounted desktop licenses. It's essentially the same catalog as the donated desktop licenses because it covers the usual standard standard versions of programs, such as, again, Office Standard, Windows Server Standard, and so on. The only difference is that, A, the rates may be slightly higher, mainly because they reflect a commercial licenses, still a commercial rate, but with a nonprofit discount, which is usually about 60 to 75% off. All right. Outside of that, the coverage of this catalog is far more expensive because it doesn't only cover your standard versions, it also covers your professional versions. What do you mean by professional or enterprise versions, Jed? A good example is Office. Again, it's not just Office Standard, you're also getting Office Pro Plus. These are, again, highlighting desktop licenses, all right? Now, because these are commercial licenses with nonprofit discounts, they're not limited to your usual 50 per organization every 2 years, unlike the donated desktop licenses. They are instead available to you for as many as you would want. However, I would like to again highlight, the rates are slightly higher because they are, again, commercial licenses with just some nonprofit discounts, all right? Now let's help you visualize that, okay? To highlight the difference or how it looks like in our TechSoup catalog, let's use a standard use case, which is common for a lot of organizations, i.e. needing Office. If, say, you need Office, you can essentially look at the TechSoup catalog and source that from 3 different programs, right? The donated license, the discounted license, and cloud subscriptions. From your donated license, it's really that product right there, USD 52 per license. It's limited at 50 per organization every 2 years. And this is the common catalog that you'd usually interact with TechSoup. Okay. Now, its discounted counterpart is this. It's again it's a bit pricier at 187 per license, but it is not limited to 50 per organization because these are again commercial licenses with a nonprofit discount. That being said, you can still access these even after the changes, right? And lastly, if you are going to source that through cloud subscriptions, a good example where you can source this from is Microsoft 365 Business Standard, which is about $3 per user per month. And it is, however, for a recurring fee, not unlike the desktop counterparts, which is one time only. But you can always access it. You can access it for up to 300 users, and the versions are consistently updated. Okay, so just to highlight how that is different in the catalog and how, essentially, for you to better visualize how these products are in the catalog, this is them. And just to reiterate again, the changes are only exclusive to the donated license program. Okay, that being said, even after April 4, 2022, the option to access discounted licenses and cloud subscriptions will remain available to you. It's only the donated licenses that are going away. Okay. Now, on to the next big question, which is how will these changes actually affect our nonprofit? Okay. Let's start off by ticking off those that will not be affected. And first and foremost, before I jump into this, I would like to thank you to those who sent their questions beforehand. Those have been very helpful for us to get an understanding of your key concerns and essentially some key questions that you wanted to get answered here. And this is essentially where I got the idea for this slide, right? So let's first clear the air with what it won't be affected, okay? What won't be affected are, first, rates, features, or validity of even donated desktop licenses you've already received. If you've received Office Standard, Windows Get Genuine from the program before, those will not be affected. Those will remain valid and those will remain usable for you, okay? If in terms of cloud subscriptions, those are again not affected at all because the changes are exclusive only to the Microsoft donated license program, okay? Another thing that won't be affected is your access to either the Microsoft discounted program, which is the slightly pricier version of the donated license, and also the cloud subscriptions. Those are not affected at all, and they will remain to be available to you as eligible nonprofits even after April 4, 2022, okay? And lastly, again, this change is exclusive to Microsoft, particularly that donated license subset. That being said, other donor programs will not be affected. Good example is if you've received donations from Google, Adobe, Zoom, Facebook, and so on, those are not affected at all, right? However, what will be affected is your future access to donated desktop licenses. Again, by April 4th, those will no longer be available to you. The key effects of this really is in your planning. If you're currently planning for additional licenses or if you're currently undergoing tech plans for the next year, this is where this becomes a bit of a concern. Because if you do require licenses from our donated license catalog, that is where you have to create some serious considerations as to when you would need to purchase these licenses or when you need to secure those, or if you need to look elsewhere, such as cloud subscriptions, all right? Now, if the donated and cloud programs are still, if the discounted and cloud programs are still available after April 2022, why is this change important to me? Because in essence, desktop licenses will remain to be available to you as eligible organizations even after April 4, right? It's just through the discounted license program. Alternatively, Microsoft's cloud first strategy makes a whole array of cloud subscriptions either for free or discounted rates still available for you as well. So why should you be concerned? Now, this is where I would like to get a bit serious for that. There are key concerns particular to our region. I would like to be very upfront and cautious I also like to be very conscious of the fact that the region that we're supporting, developing countries in Southeast and South Asia, these desktop licenses in these regions remain to be very valuable, and mainly because of a lot of different constraints. And I would like to highlight here other reasons that you would need to consider as well, making this a bit of a concern for you. All right. First, donated licenses are simply just more accessible. If you compare the rates between donated and discount license, while there is still a substantial discount for the discounted licenses, comparing them to their donated counterparts make the donated licenses just a bit more accessible to you, particularly if you're strapped budget-wise, right? Outside of that, this also affects any ongoing planning that you may already have or are already doing ahead of next year. I know this is the end of this is about the end of the calendar year, where a lot of you may already be going through some budget reviews or some ongoing planning, tech planning for the next year. And this change might significantly affect you, it may not. But I would like to highlight is that if we have ongoing plans, revisit those now and check whether some aspects of it will be affected by this change, right? Because again, this may create some budgetary implications to that. And last but not the least, I would like to also be cautious of the state of connectivity in our regions. I understand that for most of us, again, I'm Filipino, so I totally understand how this is. Internet connection is still tricky for a lot of us. And I understand that for some of you, you may be working in rural areas or remote areas, which may not necessarily have good access to internet. That being said, desktop or offline licenses are of the necessity. And this makes this change, that being said, these changes may, again, have some serious implications or effects on your plans to actually continue that program or continue providing tech support for that program, okay? So I just want to highlight these three key concerns I have, and I think which TechSoup as a whole is being conscious of. And that's why we wanted to host this webinar as soon as possible, to be able to help put these concerns as upfront, to be upfront with these concerns as soon as possible so we can work around them, right? So with all of these concerns and with all of these changes in mind, what should my nonprofit do? And I understand that this can be a bit overwhelming for you. And the bigger question is, well, Jed, what do we do next? Don't worry. First and foremost, there's still a bit of time, and it's not the end of the world. But for the short term, my advice is this: really revisit your on-premise or offline or desktop needs. If you're well resourced now in that regard, then great. This should not be a concern at all. However, it's also not just about where you are at the moment. It's also about thinking of what are your potential needs moving forward. What happens after April 4th is that these donated licenses will no longer be available to you. That being said, you would want to check in on your potential needs even after April. So if you still need a few extra licenses, then maybe you still have now today and by April 3rd to get those. I just want to highlight that again, it's not just about where you are now, but what potential needs may arise in the future, okay? Long term is that what's important is for you to start looking into cloud subscriptions. Now, I understand that, again, there's a big discussion between that and also internet connectivity, right? But I would like to highlight that some cloud subscriptions actually offer desktop counterparts as well. Again, a good example is Microsoft Business Premium. That includes both Office and Windows. And that's entirely free for teams of 10, okay? So there are cloud subscriptions that are perfect in the sense that it also offers you both desktop licenses and cloud subscriptions and cloud apps, being just more comprehensive in that sense, right? That being said, you may also want to take this time to start planning which operations can we shift towards cloud so we can start securing free or donated cloud subscriptions for you as early as now, right? And last but not least, I would like to always highlight that TechSoup is for the nonprofits. We are, much as this change will happen, we are also changing the way we approach nonprofits, and that it's not just about the licenses, it's what bridges you to create a better impact. So if you need help, particularly in just making sense of how these changes impact you or what can you do to work around these, we have a lot of different programs now to help support you. A good example is that we now have a team of experts that can help you find the right and most cost-effective subscriptions that are perfect for your needs. We now offer remote setup and email migration to help you move to your new donated cloud subscriptions. And last but not the least, we also offer upskilling opportunities. A good example is our courses, online courses tailored specifically for nonprofit staff and with nonprofit needs in mind. All right. And again, that's about it for me. I really wanted to make that discussion part as quick as possible and as concise as possible so we can move towards the meat of the session, which is the Q&A. So Jason, I pass it back to you.
Thank you very much for that, Jed. And yeah, we have the questions coming from the Q&A chat group. The first question is coming from Sarah Westy Sinapan. The question is there any discounts for nonprofit for Microsoft Dynamics 365 sales user license for the annual subscription renewal? So we started using since 2016 and they have triple 2016. So yeah, it's basically he's asking about the discounts for the Microsoft Dynamics 365 Chad.
That's a really good question. And yes, I know Dynamics 365 is covered by the Microsoft for Nonprofits program specifically. There's not a lot of content available in their website about the specific features or facets of that, but I'm more than happy to help find resources on how you can get started with that discussion with either TechSoup or Microsoft. I'll definitely note that for my follow-up. I'm sorry I can't provide you as much information now, but those programs are, from what I know, are directly run by Microsoft. But let me get you some details as to how you can get that process started. But the general requirement is if you need any cloud donations from Microsoft, such as Dynamics 365 or even Azure or so on, the first step is usually to register for Microsoft.com/nonprofits. As soon as you're qualified there, your dashboard in that website should also provide you with direct links on how to access some of these cloud subscriptions. But let me find you better and more detailed instructions, all right?
Thank you, Jed. We also have coming from the comments from Patrick Lau. I think you already ran this. Is server and SQL Server 2019 license affected?
That's a good question. I think the important part here is to consider whether you've already received that or not, right? If you've already received these licenses before, then you shouldn't worry if they're already installed. Even if they're installed or not, those will remain valid. However, if you're asking whether if you're going to need that after April 4th, then the guidance I received is that while the larger donations catalog will no longer be available, there are certain and only a handful of exceptions. I understand that SQL may be one of them because I understand there were two. It was Windows Get Genuine. That's one that's definitely not going to be affected. That will remain available to you as a donated license. There were two others that are servers. From what I know, it was Windows Server and SQL, I believe, but the exception, those will only apply if Azure is not available in that country as a donation. So I will have to double check that. But in terms of the donated desktop licenses, if you're planning on purchasing SQL after April 4th, the donated catalog will no longer be a good option for you. You may need to source that to the discount catalog. But we may also look into other cloud alternatives, such as whether you can get that through Azure or so on.
And we also have coming from Manolo Fitalvero, Jed, training and upskilling. How can they access and apply for this?
Awesome. So the TechSoup courses is available to anyone. The beauty about that platform is that we actually don't run eligibility guidelines for that. It's accessible to everyone. We will be sending you access to that particular website. It will require a separate registration process, but there are no fees in registering. There will be some minimal fees to sign up for each course, but those do vary per course. If you have a specific course needs, let us know here. I'll try to think of some good links to share afterwards. But the beauty of that course, the course catalog, is that it's not just about product. A lot of it is actually about operational themes such as fundraising, effective meetings, and so on. So it's not just about product information. It's more on how you're going to operate as a nonprofit, particularly now that we're almost working 100% remote. So there you go.
Thanks, Jed. And also we have from Andy Budiman from the Q&A chat group about the office standard licensing in general. As they only have limited licenses, what will happen to the device installs needs to reset for any reasons and reinstall the office or reactivate? And will this gonna consume additional license for them?
That's a good question. If I understand this correctly, if you're asking whether there are any actions for you to do after April 4th as it relates to licenses you've already received, no, don't worry. You don't need to do anything. Those will remain valid. Those will remain accessible to you. You don't need to reactivate or reinstall. Those will, business as usual for the licenses you've already received. It's only the access to the catalog, the TechSoup catalog, that's going to be changing. So, but for the licenses we already received, don't worry, that's safe. I hope that answered your question, by the way.
Thanks, Jed. And yeah, we also have questions coming from the Rivati Kangasu. How about the volume licenses, Jed? Does it affect it?
From what I know, the VLSC will remain as it is. If you have licenses in the VLSC from previous purchases, you don't need to worry. I understand that there were changes to the VLSC in of itself in terms of accessing it, but it won't go away from what I know. And from the guidance I've received, it won't go away. If there are, however, I will let you know as soon as possible. I'll make that a note for any follow-up, for the follow-up content that we'll be sharing after this, but the guidance I've received so far is that it won't be. If you have licenses in the VLSC at the moment, those won't be affected.
Thanks, Jed. I also need to mention this from Binaya Shrestha. What will happen to all these philanthropic organizations funding for the donation products for not-for-profit organizations like us?
If I understand this correctly, the question is whether there will be a realignment of the funds supporting those donated license. If I understand it correctly, the overall strategy for Microsoft is really to focus now on their cloud program. It is unfortunately the case of technology in general, right? It's not just Microsoft. Adobe was one of the first ones to do that. And eventually a lot followed suit. In terms of realigning whatever support that is, pushing that donations catalog, it will now be realigned towards those cloud programs. And again, that's not necessarily a bad thing. There's the cloud catalog of Microsoft is quite robust, and it is actually very generous in a sense, because they're offering, a good example is the Microsoft Business Premium. It's about, it's free for 10 users, and it covers both Windows and Office. But then again, you're saying, Jed, that's only 10 users. That's for that particular subscription. There are a lot of different subscriptions that are actually available entirely for free. If you have specific needs that you would want addressed, we will be sharing some links later. Our team is more than happy to have that conversation with you so we can map that to the most cost-effective and most strategic license or subscription available to you. Naturally, I understand that cost is an issue, so we want to, as much as possible, prioritize those that are more cost-effective, i.e. free. So, yeah.
We also have from Fabian Go, Jed. He just wanted to confirm if we have E1 and E2 license for Office. So this license will not be made available, but existing license would still stay as per initial agreement, right?
That is a good question. I may need to tag somebody in here. I know our expert Ellen is also on the line, but let me address one key question first, which is about E1. I know there were significant changes to both of these subscriptions. Ellen, please correct me if I'm wrong. E1, there are two things you want to note here. There were significant changes to the E1 price points earlier this year. If you've received E1 licenses before, those will not be affected at all, and those will remain available to you. However, any future need for E1, they will no longer be free, but they will be at a discounted rate of $2 per user per month. Ellen, if you're online, could you also help clarify the state of E2 and whether there were any mistakes I may have said about E1?
Well, that is actually correct. And as for the E2 license, though there are some of the NGOs that still use E2 or still seeing E2 licenses on their subscription, it is no longer being offered by Microsoft or TechSoup. So the direct replacement of that is E1 license. And the same thing. So if you will just be registering or signing up for E1 license, that will be a paid license already, since it's been paid license since a month of August.
But if you need to divert that to free subscriptions, which I understand is crucial as well, just let us know. Please have a consultation with us. Talking to us is entirely free. We can help you map that to the most cost-efficient subscription that could serve as an alternative to E2. But I guess just to also revisit that question, Ellen, correct me if I'm wrong. If they received E2 before, those will remain active and those will not be affected.
That's
the
correct.
future. It's the future access to additional E2 licenses that will no longer be available, right?
That's right.
Yep. Thanks, Evan. All right. Jerson, do we have any additional questions?
Yeah, we have questions from Marcus Chong. Would there be any changes for Office 365 offering? I understand that Microsoft is trying to phase that out and move usage to M365.
That is a good question. There's no significant changes for Office 365 as a whole and as a product title. Yeah, the only significant change we've experienced so far is E1 is no longer free. But again, that change will not affect licenses or subscriptions have already received, but only future access to E1. In terms of phasing it out, there's no guidance as to whether that is happening, but if it is, it's usually easier to map or reroute subscriptions based on feature alternatives. Based on other alternatives that could match features and functions. So, but yeah, quick answer, no, there are no changes so far outside of the E1 changes, but we will let you know.
Sorry, Jed. Will E3? Sorry. I mentioned earlier about E1 and E2. What about E3 license? Will it also be affected?
Good question. No, E3 is not affected at all at any level. So if you currently have E3 or if you're planning on getting E3, don't worry, it's totally fine.
Okay. And yeah, I think this is I am not sure if this is relevant as well. Will Office 2021 desktop version be available in TechSoup?
I believe it is now, actually. So the beauty about the Microsoft program, whether cloud or desktop license through TechSoup, is that it matches the updated version, the most up-to-date version, mainly because if you purchase a license through TechSoup, you'll essentially claim that through VLSC. And standard VLSC features, particularly if it includes software assurance, is that it will include the most recent version if available. Let me double confirm that, but from what I know, it should already be available. Don't quote me on that yet, but if you're sourcing through the donations catalog, I'll have to double check. But if you're on a cloud subscription, those are consistently being updated anyway. So any new features introduced in the 2021 version should already have been introduced to your Office license if your subscription covers desktop licenses.
Okay. And also, Jed, what about the Microsoft 365 Business Basic for nonprofit staff pricing? Will
is the question about whether are there any effects to it?
Yeah, if there's any effect to it.
No, that's a really good question. And again, the important part here is to distinguish which Microsoft program it falls under. Microsoft 365 Business Premium and any Microsoft 365 or Office 365 titles, they fall conveniently under cloud. So with the changes only being for donated desktop licenses, cloud and discounted are not affected at all. So to quickly answer, no, it won't have any effects. So that's really good, actually.
Thank you, Jed. Other than that, we have like questions when it comes to the pricing for Microsoft. So maybe you could also share where they could see that pricing in our TechSoup platform.
Good question. We do have products. So let me hang on. Let me open up one page right now. So give me a moment. I'll resume my screen share once I have the page open. So here we go. So let's use TechSoup Singapore as an example, but the layout of this is somewhat similar to other countries. So all you need to do is try to find Microsoft Cloud. Let's do that now under Essential Solutions, Microsoft Cloud. And the prices of that should be at the bottom sections of the product pages. Let's use Microsoft 365 here. As you would see, this provides the details. If you scroll at the very bottom, right here, subscription options will detail the different prices and rates at a per user per month level. So you should be able to see those rates here. Just rinse and repeat if you need Office 365. Let's go back. Just go to Office 365. In the same section, will provide you with the additional information you're going to need. So if you scroll down there you go. So hopefully that helps. But then again, if you're not quite privy with the titles, you can have a conversation with us. Just itemize your needs as much as you can, and we'll try to match that with applicable subscription packages for you. Because we understand there's a lot of different subscription options, and it's not like Netflix that only offers 3, right? It's a bit confusing. So we're more than happy to help you navigate that.
I think that's all. Other questions? So yeah, I'm gonna drop on our customer service at TechAsia email, so everyone could feel free to have a in-depth discussion or for additional questions.
And I guess just moving forward as well, again, please don't let this conversation stop here. Again, as much like Jason said, we're more than happy to receive your inquiries to customer service at TechSoup.Asia. Additionally, we're happy to share that we've now launched like a booking system. If you want a strategic conversation, if you want to have strategic consultations, which are entirely for free, you can use this link, bit.ly talk to TechSoup. So let me help you navigate that. Hang on. So just let's showcase that now to help you. Just give me a moment, just waiting for here you go. If you visit that link, you should be able to see this page right here, and we have experts, including myself, depending on your key concerns. Feel free to schedule a call with any of us, depending on the specific topic you're going to need. For Microsoft consultations, I would recommend talking to Ellen. So feel free to directly book a call through that button. If you click that, let's actually demonstrate that now. If you click schedule a call, you'll essentially be redirected to our calendar, so you can pick a time and date that you want. Again, there are 3 different options here. If your concerns are about general TechSoup accounts or your eligibility concerns and so on, you can talk to Jomar. Microsoft Cloud, and or any migration or cloud concerns, please talk to Ellen. If you need strategic operational advice, such as, Jed, how do we make sense of these changes? How do we adapt a better remote work policy and things like that? I'm more than happy to throw ideas with you. So please book a call with any of us or all of us, if all of us apply to you. So yeah, again, not just the customer service email, this is also an available option for you to have so that we can have in-depth discussions and also create plans for you to move forward. Okay. All right. So Jerson, do we have any final takers and questions? Okay, if nothing else, I really appreciated you guys taking the time to just attend this session and brace these changes with us. Again, I understand it is a bit of a drastic change, but as what I've said earlier, TechSoup is here for you. Our main mission is to help support nonprofits such as you, not just to access technology, but to make sense of it. Because more often than not, I understand we feel as if we're being left out and that things are moving too fast. But that is our mission. We will help you make sense of it, and we will help you create a strategy moving forward. With that in mind, again, thank you, and I wish you all the best. And let's keep this conversation going. Bye.